Governor Gavin Newsom dropped a bombshell in his State of the State address on high-speed rail. Question is it going to survive the blast? Let's take a look at what the governor said this week.
But let's be real. The current project, as planned, would cost too much and respectfully take too long. There's been too little oversight and not enough transparency.
Well, joining us this morning is Guardino. He's the head of the Silicon Valley Leadership Group, and they've been very active in transportation issues. Okay, high-speed rail, we just heard the governor. Is it on? Is it off? Does it stay just in the Central Valley?
It's on. And it doesn't just stay in the Central Valley, but the governor reminds us you can have a big vision and still be fiscally responsible and build in segments with the bigger vision still in mind.
Okay, we have a vision in mind, but the reality is on the ground. And he's going to build a line from Bakersfield to Merced, and not the line from, let's say, Merced into the Silicon Valley that was sort of spoken of. The idea of going valley to valley in a train like this that you could commute in and work in the San Jose area. That is going to be way off in the future, if ever now.
Well, let me be clear. We have always felt that it makes sense to build high-speed rail from the agricultural capital of the world, Central Valley, to the innovation capital of the world, Silicon Valley. That always has made sense. But the governor has to make dollars and cents out of fiscal reality while still keeping the vision. So he said three things. One, build the first 165-mile segment, Bakersfield to Merced, which was what was called for in the federal legislation to attract the $3.5 billion in federal funds. Two, and this is showing the bigger dream because it's not inexpensive and it's absolutely critical, the EIR for the whole system. And then three, as he said in the speech, the bookends, the connection here in Northern California of $741 million to complete our funding for the electrification and modernization of Caltrain.
Okay, so the good news is Caltrains will still get its money to electrify and be able to carry many, many more people than it is right now.
And let's put those numbers on it. Today it's 65,000 weekday passenger trips, crammed AM and PM commutes in both directions. This takes it 80% more to 110,000 weekday passenger trips. And with the Caltrain business plan, we're going to go to 260,000.
Okay, but as far as the high-speed rail goes, it still goes from Bakersfield to Merced, and under the conditions of the bond approved by the voters, it can't be subsidized. And everyone I talk to says there is no way that you're going to be able to operate that 165-mile line without a subsidy. So in effect, we're going to wind up with a giant public works project in the Central Valley completed that really goes nowhere.
And I liken this to Dwight D. Eisenhower when he was president in the 50s, and he envisioned the interstate highway system. And Phil, you know where he started. He started in rural America with as big as stretches as he could to show the concept, to lay as much road in that example, in this example as much track as possible to get started. And that is how I see what the governor has said. He still has the vision, but he's being fiscally responsible in the process.
Okay, speaking of fiscal responsibility, here in the Bay Area, we are still grappling with our transportation, and I understand that your group is already out there polling and putting together a proposition possibly for a mega transportation bond for the entire, not just 9 Bay Area counties, but even possibly 25 counties that go all the way from Sacramento to Salinas?
And as you know, the Silicon Valley Leadership Group has run 18 transportation, housing, or open space measures, 17 successfully. The first thing we do is not run ahead. We're going to build consensus-driven collaborative process to find out what our 8 million citizens in the Bay Area think about a type of measure like LA did in 2016. They did a permanent 1-cent sales tax. It'll generate about $120 billion over its first 40 years because they have mammoth problems.
So the short answer is yes, you are planning to go to the voters with another
We hope so. We hope so in a 9-county way because we have a regional economy.
Will that include rail service into the Central Valley?
The 9 counties that are in the measure, that would be in a measure, need to come together first. We are starting with, see that piece of blank paper you have? That's where we start when we do a measure. We don't presuppose what the projects would be, what the funding source would be. That's what you do with the collaborative process. And that's why we've led 17 successful measures by bringing people in to build the product rather than telling them, here, buy my product.
Buy, build, one way or the other. I feel your hand reaching for my wallet. Whether I'm going to enjoy the ride or not remains to be seen. All right, I want you to talk to you next. Stick around, can you, a little bit? I want to talk to you about this other bombshell that the governor threw out there about possibly putting a tax on Google, Facebook, and such like that. California's Governor Gavin Newsom dropped a rather huge hint about the future of data in California. As you know, it is a very touchy issue. You and I on the internet, they mine our information, they sell it. What are we getting back for it? That's what the governor asked. Let's take a look.
California consumers should also be able to share in the wealth that is created from their data. So I've asked my team to develop a proposal for a new data dividend for Californians, because we recognize your data has value and it belongs to you. We can do something bold in this space.
Well, joining us is Guardino with the Silicon Valley Leadership Group. You were in the gallery. You heard that. What was your reaction? Data dividend, taxing the internet.
Well, I think the internet almost blew a smoke signal, because all of us were Googling, what does data dividend mean? And I think, I don't think anyone knows for sure. I think we're all trying to figure out exactly what the governor meant by that.
Well, we can put the two words together and get a pretty good idea. The European Union's already talking about doing it, is basically charging a fee for Facebooks and the Googles. They take people's data, they sell it. The idea is that somebody should get something in return for that. That's got to blow the doors off the business model for a lot of tech.
Yeah, and it's going to be fascinating, because then what does it do to the consumer model of having access to that information as well? So that's going to be a fascinating conversation. And Governor Newsom, when he was mayor, when he was lieutenant governor, now as governor, likes to be bold and push the envelope, and that is a good thing. We want leaders who are willing to lead. A key ingredient to leading is also sitting down and having those conversations, and that's what's going to come next, I'm sure.
But the whole model of the tech and app economy, which is driving the Bay Area, is the idea that we get to use the internet for free. You go on the Googles, the Facebooks, or your various apps, you click in, we get it free, they get our data, they get to use the data for what they want, which is a huge advertising thing. But lately, questions have risen about the data use, and it's not as friendly or as favorable with the public as it was, let's say, 4 or 5 years ago. And now they're asking questions not only about security, but what's our cut of the action?
Yeah, and that's, again, going to be fascinating, because what does that do to you and I as consumers? Are we now going to be paying to use those systems? We're going to have to wait and see.
Can the Facebooks and the Googles survive on a paid model? The whole idea was free.
Yeah, and again, I don't work at or for Facebook or Google, though they're 2 of our 350 member companies. So learning more about what the governor has in mind, what that would then do to the model of you and I being able to have all this information at our fingertips, quite literally for free, we're going to have to find out. That's going to be a great statewide conversation.
Well, there's also a possible move to put it on the ballot, to go straight to the voters with a package, just like there was with data security. Now, I know that you don't work for any of these companies, but your ear is pretty well tuned, and so is your phone. So what are you hearing as about this idea?
Yeah, this week our focus since the State of the State address has been around several of the other bold proposals by the governor on housing, on transportation, on health care.
This one, could this one mean companies leaving the state?
You know, that is more rare than one would think. So in the broader picture of the economic climate of California, usually what happens if employers don't feel they can afford to be in California is they don't grow jobs here. Or when jobs become open, they're replaced in other places, usually other places in the United States.
Okay, but if they're headquartered here and somebody's coming after them for a data dividend, perhaps they decide to relocate?
Yeah, I don't want to speculate.
Okay.
That wouldn't be fair to you or your viewers. What right now,
But it would be fun.
what right now the most important thing is to have that conversation. Governor, what do you mean by a data dividend? How would that work? How does that impact
Have you
our
gotten any
ability
answers
to
so
get
far?
data for free as we currently
Have we
do?
gotten any answers out of the governor's shop so far?
No, because this week, certainly at the Silicon Valley Leadership Group, we've been focused on his transportation and high-speed rail message, the exciting information he talked about on housing and homelessness, the healthcare message, and the education message.
All those will be done, but this one's going to be new territory.
Yes.
And it is going to be the issue this year if he pushes it.
I think all 5 of those are going to be considerable issues this year. And
Trust
all
me,
very
this one
important.
is going to be the biggest one. But we don't have time for any more of that. Carl Guardino, I want to thank you for joining us.
Pleasure.